to thank everyone for joining us here in this this webinar. As you can see from the title, the focus is really about data-driven AML compliance programs, and and our experiences with regards to the implementation of these programs and assisting our customers build effective programs as it relates to data. So again, Cal Gadban, I'm the Director of Analytics and Data Science Consulting practice, and Michelle Kaluri is the Delivery Manager for our solutions. So one of the things I'd like to start off with is really to talk a little bit about the analytics opportunity. We're coining it this term rather than really talking about the compliance opportunity. Really, the focus today is data-driven and analytics, and what organizations are currently doing today to fight financial crime in relation to analytics. So, we're going to start off by talking a little bit about what PwC's Global Economic Crime and Fraud Survey in 2018 came up with. They found that 42% of respondents, within a lot of organizations, were increasing their spending on combating financial crime in the past 2 years. And if you've also seen here, there's a boost in spending over the next 2 years. And why that is, PwC has also came up with another result where they've noticed that organizations are spending a lot of investment in their compliance programs with leveraging more powerful technology and data analytics tools to fight financial crime. So with that said, there's a but to this, right? There is, they're spending a lot of investment on technology, but the Global AML Survey results for 2016, Dow Jones and ACAMS came up with the fact that decision makers within these compliance and AML programs continue to cite data accuracy as a single most important factor. And through 2016, 60% of respondents raised concerns of shortage of skilled staff and outdated technology. So you could see, there's spending going on, a lot of investments happening with regards to, more advanced technologies and data analytics tools to help fight financial crime. But there's still some challenges that organizations are having in regards to data and enabling their staff with these new technologies. So, business opportunities. With these challenges, comes business opportunities on how to improve and leverage these technologies to improve your processes and enable your staff. So one of the things that one of the points that we've noticed multiple times having conversations with our customers and prospects is that, one of the things that's come up is reduction of manual process. All right, right now with the pervasive use of data within the AML and compliance space, reduction of manual processes has become, top of mind for a lot of organizations. And reducing manual processes also helps in reduction of cost as well. Automated control validation, right? Again, manual process and automating these processes are also important. A lot of this is, when we talk about automated control validation, it's really about some of its regulatory requirements and reporting and validating those reports from an automated perspective, making sure the rules are actually being vetted properly. And today's technology, with a lot of advances in today's technology, you can actually automate those controls. Address lack of skills. Again, another thing that comes up a lot with our conversations with our customers is the lack of skills for new technologies and addressing them. It's an opportunity to make sure that you're adopting the AML technologies properly, and it's really about enablement, right? The technology is really there to enable the staff to help build better business processes around compliance, right? So you're actually automating your processes, you're enabling your staff, and you're adapting to continuous changes in the environment, right? With regards to technology, organization, and services. Now, basically all the points above that last point is really about making sure that you're looking at a holistic view of your compliance analytics program. Right, so it's not just about the technology; it's also about your process and the people who are leveraging the technology. So, you know, the prior slide we talked a little bit about a few of the points around people, process, and technology. And compliance programs are evolving. They are evolving because of the advances in technology and because of the changing in regulatory requirements and data. Data is becoming so pervasive today in the AML and compliance space that, you know, in a way you can't get away from it. You need it. And you know, one of the things that you know, we recommend is that best practices is to really look at it from a holistic point of view. It's not just going out and getting technology. It's not just, you know, a silo process or people with regards to training on just regulatory requirements or you know, or processes, but it's also making sure that these three pillars, which have been around for a very long time, and people, process, and technology, I'm sure there's a lot of people on this webinar who've heard a lot about this, and it's really taking a strategic approach to your AML compliance program. And the focus is really about data and analytics in the context of the conversation that we're having, right? So departments evolving, involved in evolution. Now, I'm not, if you actually take a look at this particular slide, it says compliance analytics program, right? Really, you know, what we're trying to say here is that there's data, you know, in so many different business processes. There's data in your financial systems, there's data, you know, in IT, there's operational data. There's data in all of the different areas within the business. And you have obviously you have the corporate compliance program, but the compliance analytics program is really focused on bringing this data together and being able to provide again a holistic view of you know, of the information, and really starting to look at leveraging analytics to identify patterns with key compliance areas, right? Not just one area. It's looking at the key compliance areas. So when you're actually looking at it from that perspective, your focus is really all about data and the analytics that are enabling the people within not only the compliance program or the corporate compliance program, but also the stakeholders that are involved within the business processes as well. You know, we talked, you know, I'm talking about the data, the people, the process, or the technology. People are a big part of, you know, your compliance program, but again, the context of the conversation is not so much about the organizational structure. It's really about the stakeholders and how analytics and data are there to enable these stakeholders, right? You know, chief compliance and AML officers are you're starting to see a lot more organizations really take note of bringing in the chief compliance and AML officers. You know, one of the recommendations we've always made to our clients when they ask, and you know, when we're going through some of the conversations around the technology and potentially retransforming their processes around the technology, is that You know, in a lot of cases, a chief compliance AML officer, you know, is starting to report up to the chief executive officer. You know, you had the CIO and the chief marketing officer and the chief data officer. You know, all these roles are starting to report into the CEO, and I think the chief compliance officer is also a role where they're definitely starting to do that as well because of some of the decisions that they're actually making. They are the compliance leader and the subject matter expert, you know, and really having to understand the technologies and enabling technologies that that are going to enable the organization to achieve some of their corporate objectives around compliance. General counsel, you know, we're starting to see that a lot more now in regards to, you know, some of the legal implications around regulatory requirements, you know, and making sure that the exposure is reduced, or you know, obviously no one wants to get fined. So they're definitely a stakeholder. They're an important stakeholder within this whole process of transforming your compliance AML compliance analytics program. And again, more people. I talked earlier in the slide deck about you know, some of the data around and the owners of some of the business processes, whether they may be, you know, the payment system owners, or depending on the organization that you're with, right? So it's important to make sure that these business owners and business executive process owners are involved in the conversation. You know, one of the things too is that the compliance program that, you know, the conversations in our experiences having discussions with our clients is that, you know, it's not just about being that internal law enforcement and policing agency. It's really about enabling the business today, because you're leveraging data. You're really trying to help them with regards to, you know, basically the bottom line around costs and increasing revenue and improved operational efficiency. CIO is again another very important stakeholder within the compliance AML program. Why? Because, well, data, right? You know, data is you know, the focus for this, and obviously the technology that is leveraging this data for the purpose of providing analytics to the compliance team, and also the stakeholders or the business process owners. You know, you need these you need their buy-in. It's important to have their buy-in, and you know, they're going to provide the infrastructure and make sure that the data is kind of brought in more of a holistic view, because there's so much data out there today, especially now with the advances in a lot of technologies, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those advances in technologies. But first, process. Right. So again, the context of talking about process here is really about data, right? And you know, now, you know, a lot of compliance and analytics, we're seeing the conversations go from, you know, as we would call it, the rear view mirror of looking at data, because you're looking at the past, you know, the transactions that have already occurred. And right now, the processes are really changing because of the advances in technology, real-time insights, right? Now that's becoming a more prevalent conversation with chief AML officers or chief compliance officers. You're really talking to us about real-time insights and really about prevention. You know, with the advances of AML technologies and capabilities, real-time is becoming really prevalent. Single version of the truth. Again, you know, how to take all this data and bring it together and really start looking at things from an entity perspective, you know, rather than just looking at, you know, slices and siloed data like it was in the past, right? So And also, the process here is important when we talk about integrated planning across all businesses, right? Compliance often occurs in silos, right? Causing, several teams are unknowingly reviewing the same issues. You have the AML teams, you have the fraud teams, are kind of sometimes working separately because they, in the past it could be, two different teams. But today with, the advances of these technologies and really starting to look at an integrated approach to everything, both teams are actually starting to talk to each other and have those serious conversations around data. And it's important to focus on what matters, right? So leveraging data analytics on focusing on the more critical risks, right? Which is really, really important. Again, right, leading into the technology slide, talking about integrated planning. Well, technology today is really about integrated financial crime platform, right? Before, all of the points that you see there, most of them were siloed, right? So you had, a completely different, vendor risk management solution, you had a case management solution, you had a sanction screening solution, regulatory reporting solution. So they were all, in different technologies, different sources, different versions of the truth. And what's happening today with these advances in technologies and capabilities is that, everyone's starting to really, think about things from an integrated financial crime platform and providing that platform. And that platform obviously now is providing you with case management and the data integration where it's bringing all the data together. Obviously the dashboards and management reporting all coming together. But it's not just today just about the integration of all these capabilities. There's even more that's happening, and the conversations are even moving even further to artificial intelligence, how to be data driven, right? So again, who would have ever thought that we would be having this conversation about artificial intelligence within the compliance and AML space? Data has been something that's been that has been leveraged by other departments extensively for a long time. The conversations around machine learning and artificial intelligence, that discussion, has been, is quite mature, and the conversations are quite mature within, when you're looking at marketing, when they're looking at customer behaviors. I mean, they're looking at it from a very different perspective. When you're talking to sales, again, looking at it from a very different perspective. Finance, very different perspective, right? So they're looking at it outwards towards the customer, and it's almost like a revenue generator. But with the advances of artificial intelligence and machine learning and how it's actually being leveraged to provide insights to the compliance teams, those discussions are happening more and more and more today. With regards to the prevention of financial crime, stopping people from doing things they shouldn't be doing. And with the natural language processing of and what I mean by that is, you're starting to look at artificial intelligence in a way that you can look at regulatory requirements, which are basically language, text and language. And a lot of these artificial intelligence programs today are able to sift through a lot of that information and be able to present that to the compliance team and the changes in those requirements as well, and provide you the insight. So very important. It's here to stay. If you haven't really had those conversations around machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's very important to start having those discussions. Again, data-based insight lead to answers, right? So, how do you keep up with the trends in a sense, really the regulatory requirements? There's a lot of questions here. I'm sure you guys have asked these questions multiple times. You know, and you know, with data today, with the advances of artificial intelligence and machine learning, with the advances of just, you know, the platforms themselves, the integrated platforms, you could start answering a lot of these questions in one area. It's almost like a one-stop shop, right? So you have a particular question, you get that answer in that same single platform. You know, and it gives you those insights that that you need. I won't go into a lot of the details around some of these questions, but one of the ones I did want to talk about again is how to identify issues before the regulators do, right? So, you know, there's a lot of conversations around, obviously, the transactions, and you're looking at the transactions. But again, with the advances of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence is able to sift through, you know, the changing in requirements, which is just natural language. And then how, you know, today you could take those particular validation rules or regulatory rules and actually get the system to make those adjustments on the fly. They are here, and there's a lot of organizations that and a lot of technologies out there that do that. So talking about the integrated compliance platform, compliance analytics platform, CAP. It's a lot. There's a lot in this picture. You know, and sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming if you know, if you haven't seen a picture like this before. But what's important about this picture is what I talked about earlier in the earlier slide about one-stop shop, right? What's really important is that this is about capabilities, right? It's not really about a particular product or whatnot, but it's about capabilities and enabling the staff to be able to leverage those capabilities. And again, it's the three pillars that I talked about. People, process, and technology provide you a customer due diligence capability, right? Those three, again, provide you transaction monitoring capability, regulatory reporting capability, and obviously you have those analytics as well in the investigation areas. And what's important about this slide is to really look at it from a modular, iterative approach. You know, if you're really focused on customer due diligence, you know, you look at this, you say, hey, we need everything, but, you know, the low-hanging fruit for us is really customer due diligence. And you can do that. You know, you know, a lot of integrated platforms today allow you to just deliver that that one module initially and say, okay, we've got customer due diligence, more sanction screening, if you will. And deliver that, get it to the people who really need it, and then move on to the next thing, transaction monitoring, and move on to the next thing. And before you know it, you've pretty much have a compliance analytics program, and it's in production, and you're making decisions with all the data. So what I will do is pass it on to Mike Michel Kaluri, and he will start talking about execution of these programs.
Thank you very much, Cal. Hi everyone, my name is Mike Kaluri. I'm the delivery manager here at Caseware, and what we wanted to do was help give you guys a quick piece of advice on, you know, again, your people, your business, and your process, but how do we then start to execute upon that? And just to cap off before I start to get into that, I wanted to really start to break down and say, overall, as a technology piece, this is truly what type of platform you should be looking for in a sense of capabilities. You want to make sure that your customer due diligence is covered, your KYC is covered as well through and through, that you have the ability to monitor the activity throughout the entire organization and any regulatory requirements. So how do we get to that, right? What is the process that we should be going through to achieve that? Take the time to better understand what your current actual process is in each particular business area, all right? So I have done a massive amount of risk assessment workshops throughout the world, and one consistent thing that I run into is that it's very rare to see up-to-date documentation on policies, procedures, controls monitoring, whether internal controls are up-to-date and being validated, so on and so forth. So one thing that we like to ensure to do is assess a particular business process as we progress and identify that process's strength, right? So what are the activities that are actually happening within that process? What are the roles and responsibilities of the people being involved within that? And then the system capabilities, right? So the ERP systems, are you guys using ERPs? Are you doing particular things manually? Is there anything happening outside the system, right? What are the potential pain points that you're running into when using the system or even throughout the process? Are items getting lost? Is information getting lost at times? Is there inconsistency in information between multiple disparate systems? And then what are the risks around all of those pain points that were identified? And what is the strength of your internal controls as well? And is there any risks that potentially exist around those that are not currently being monitored in an automated fashion? So again, having the ability to generate or create analytics to actually monitor these control points and ensure their effectiveness is critical. Nowadays, we start seeing where a compliance team is, at times up to only 2 or 3 people. If you have the appropriate technology that allows you to monitor the entire platform through and through, it makes your life a lot easier. So what we did was we wanted to give you guys a quick little sample of what happens when we come out of this risk assessment workshop. What was the current state of a particular process? We chose sanction screening for onboarding as an example, because it is indeed the first pillar that we talk about under customer due diligence, right? So you can see the onboarding API area here, or list screening in general when someone's being onboarded. So if you guys ever run into certain situations where you start looking at your information, you start to create these process flows and put information together, and all of a sudden it's 3 pages long and you have no idea how many different departments are involved, what are the different items that they end up doing, so where to go from here, right? We've absolutely run into these situations. Our subject matter experts sit down, assess these processes, and start to break them down and create a clear and concise process for each area. Based on the objective of what you're trying to achieve, we then help you break it down in a more simplistic form to really take the noise away and understand what are the critical elements of the process that have to be completed. So here's a simplified onboarding process that we broke down. A person comes on, does an application, whether it's a domestic or international, so you can have potentially W-8s or W-9s for those in the US, right? Once that form gets filled out, you want your customer due diligence or your due diligence, your KYC to be done automatically, right? So the minute that application is saved, everything should be verified and validated behind the scenes. You should verify the application for any errors and issues. You should identify those issues at any point in time and advise someone of them, as well as complete that due diligence of screening. Example, because Caseware does have a great partnership with Thomson Reuters, so we do a world check screening within our platform automatically, and you would then immediately receive a, hey, is there a match, is there not a match, and who should it actually be going to based on the outcome. So again, all of this is happening through the system. If there's no match, the vendor management team or supplier management team has the ability to review the application and the approval, right, on that decision, on if they should be completed, onboarded. Then you have compliance. Well, when there is a particular match, compliance should receive a particular notification, whether it's an email notification, SMS text notification, or even a dashboard notification advising them that a particular distributor, supplier, vendor has applied to be onboarded and there was actually a world check match. They should then have all of the information they require in front of them to complete that investigation, right? So the application information, what was actually screened, What are the results of that screening? I need to ensure that I have the info at my fingertips at any point in time to make an informed decision quickly and effectively. And that's what we actually did here is we took a couple screenshots of what a screening result would look like, right? So again, at my fingertips, I can see right away who is the person that was currently screened, which is Abu Hafs. When were they screened, if there was a match. And then when you start to look at the alert details, you know, what was that actual match score? What was it matched on? So you can see here the Thomson Reuters information from WorldCheck. So we've now taken all of that WorldCheck info and actually brought it down and structured it in a clean, concise manner to be able to easily read and understand. So you can see this person is known as a terrorist, terrorism category in particular locations in Sudan, Iran, Canada. They have their country of origins as well where they were found. You can see the match score of 100%. We even have a date of birth on file. And as we continue to progress, you can see, is this person actually linked to any other potential individuals or even organizations? And with that information, what's a key element and a thought process as well is the people that are actually linked to Abu, are they currently in my system? So that's a very, very critical question you should be asking yourself is, well, you know, Saif, Christian, Karim, Ahmed, all of these potential people could be other clients or vendors or suppliers or distributors that are requesting to be onboarded. Are they currently in my system? How do I stop these people from causing any potential harm within my organization? And then you can have additional info on their sanctions, when this particular timelines of when they were added to these particular sanctions, why they were added, so on and so forth. And what's also important is better understanding the source of information. So if you're interested in going to access the articles where these people were convicted or put forth on a wanted lists and sanctions, well, we do have all of those URL information as well so that you can start to really dig even deeper into the details. But most of all, on the right side, you can see historical audit trail. Where does this historical audit trail actually come from is the remediation workflows. Remediation workflow is critical to create consistency in actual remediation process to ensure that all guidelines are appropriately followed. And what we did was we put together a little example of a remediation workflow of the sanctions screening hit. So again, prior to this, we showed you an example of what the business process workflow would look like when involving all of the different people, right? So the administration team, the vendor management team, and the compliance team. Well, this remediation workflow has the ability to do the same. So if an item is a match, it will then get assigned to compliance. Compliance has the ability to investigate it, then complete a decision on whether they want to confirm the match as positive to block this particular individual or entity, so to speak, whether they want to request additional information, they consider this a false positive, or they are looking to release the item. And what's nice about this as well is ensure that your workflow has the ability to have turnaround times that can be permissioned based on particular areas, teams, or departments. Meaning, if there is more information required and I want, and compliance, meaning I from compliance, and assign this item, and I send it off to the vendor management team for more information required, they would then actually receive a notification as well and have additional, be able to attach any particular documentation, supporting info. If the application itself was done manually, you can then get it scanned and bring it into the platform. And then that information then comes back to compliance for them to do that final review and assessment. All right, ensure that you can have full collaboration throughout the organization in a single platform. Make sure that when you're doing all of this, right, it does equate to an 80 to 85% automation capability of your compliance platform. So this entire process across all different business processes, right? We want to make sure that the technology can help support that automation of importing the data from multiple sources, whether it be worldwide or centralized, for multiple different disparate systems as well, right? Different ERP systems. Try to get that data into one location, giving you that high level view, that hierarchy point of view, so to speak, will actually give you a massive advantage into gaining better clarity on what's happening in your organization. Understanding and detecting the suspicious activity that's happening in your system through analytics, and gaining a clear, concise 360-degree view of each particular entity, whether that entity is a customer, a vendor, a supplier, a distributor. Ensure that when you're pulling the data from all the different sources, that you're then organizing it in an appropriate fashion to give you all of the information you need, whether it's a risk score, a risk profile understanding, activity for transactions, activity and onboarding, relationships through screening, so on and so forth, and then clear, concise, consistent remediation guidelines, right? Ensure that the platform allows you to actually input these guidelines so that there's almost like a step-by-step guide within the system to help them know, hey, here's the situation I ran into, here are the steps I need to follow, here's the policy and procedures document that's going to help me through that. And then tying all that together is having proper KPIs as well. With this process being automated, right, how do we actually achieve that? What is the best approach, so to speak, to actually start to create this continuous monitoring process? And our method of choice is what we call the CRISP-DM method. It is a cross-industry standard process for data mining. And it's a 7-phase approach, all right? So as you start to break down, you have your primary business understanding, which is a lot of what we've been talking about, and then gaining clear and concise data understanding and how it ties to these controls, these elements, these systems and processes is critical. Once we understand that, right, you want to ensure that you can start to prepare the data accordingly based on what your actual objectives or business questions are to ensure that you achieve the appropriate results. Once you know that preparation is completed, you then start to create these models and these rules for the analytics, right? And as you start to have a particular output, so you start to evaluate these results, continuing to do so and ensure that you can test, refine, and continue to verify and evaluate the model with your subject matter experts. You then start to understand once it's ready for deployment. Of course, we then start to deploy it into the system, but that doesn't stop there, right? With deployment has continuous sustainability. So you want to continue to refresh that information. You know, go through recalibration sessions every 3 to 4 months. Go back to validate and verify, are these particular analytics still functioning at 100% for me? Do they need to continue to evolve with the environment around me, so on and so forth? And it's critical to actually take the time to always go back, all right? The job is never done. If you notice, everything here, all the arrows are iterative and always come back, right? And it continuously monitors. So what we did was we wanted to make sure that we put together a few takeaways for you guys based on all of this advice as well, right? So make sure that you do focus on creating transformational experience within your program, right? Ensure that everybody is on board that's affected and that they know that it's coming, because the best thing you could actually do is lean on your subject matter experts when actually looking into the data, because the data is one of the largest and best assets you could ever have. The data will always give you the truth, no matter what, right? And ensure that you understand what are the new skills that might be required within your organization to actually build this platform through and through. Who will it actually involve and what type of skills do they need is important to know. And when you want to actually maintain this compliant platform, you have to leverage the right culture and an analytic-driven program. If you do not have an analytic-driven program to actually do as much automation as possible, it won't be sustainable, all right? Make sure that you keep an eye out for, a data analytics program that actually combines not just the rules-based, but the advanced analytics, i.e. anomaly detection, machine learning, network link analysis, potential predictive analytics as you progress as well. It's critical to understand that you can go from a standard rules-based analytics to identify exceptions for your particular controls to then start to evolve into the advanced analytics of machine learning and anomaly detection. Most of all, when you find these particular issues and you find these exceptions, as much as you want to just repair the issue, make sure you go all the way down to know what is the root cause. Why is this truly happening? Continuing to put a Band-Aid will not actually ensure that the issue doesn't reoccur. Make sure you understand the root cause. Make sure that based on that root cause, you can then start to evolve your policy procedures or even your control so that once that is completely repaired, it doesn't start to reoccur.